Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
So I would imagine myself being in these high pressure moments and then seeing all the challenges I would face and preparing for them mentally so that when I was there, it was as if I had already prepared for this. I had already seen this reality transpire and I was calm.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we shine a light on people striving to make the world a better place. Today, a conversation about the mental and physical precision it takes to be a world-class poker player. In July, Alec Torelli finished in 11th place out of 10,000 competitors at the annual World Series of Poker's main event. He won $700,000 and cemented his status as one of the greatest poker players in the world. Alec and I just finished an amazing conversation, and the thing that really stood out to me is how much mental and physical prep goes in to spending days in the World Series main event. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Alec, and welcome back to the Common Denominator.
Thanks, Moshe. It's good to be here, and it's good to be back. We were just talking how kind of serendipitous this whole thing turned out, so it's really good timing, and that's it's cool.
And again, before the show, we were talking about just like the emotion and the journey. So now it's a couple weeks later. You placed, and I always saw that, right? It's like the main event, World Series of Poker. It's like the place.
Yeah.
10,000 people, and you placed 11th in that journey. What's top of your mind right now when you're looking back at that? What comes to your mind? What emotion, what feeling about that experience?
There's really two emotions. And the first one is trying to be grateful and appreciative and to live in the moment and enjoy the success, because it is a success, right? Top 0.01%, of course, it's success. So you have to live in that energy. You have to kind of be grateful for it and content with it and proud of the accomplishment. And so there's definitely that feeling where I look back and there were some moments of brilliance during those 7 days. And I'm very proud of those moments. And or 8 days. And so I'm very proud of the journey I've done. The other emotion is the frustration and the dissatisfaction of being so close to making history. It was the biggest main event in history. And not just making the final table, which I was, 2 away from doing, but actually winning, right? I was 10 people away from winning out of 10,000. So it's like, I'm so close to winning. And so there's that bittersweet sort of feeling. And so the second emotion is just the drive and the frustration and the dissatisfaction of not having achieved my goal of winning the main event, which I set out to do. It's kind of like when I turned 30, I kind of thought about what are the things I want to accomplish in my life going forward in the next decade. And, the last thing on my poker bucket list, I've been in poker 20 years. So like the last thing on my bucket list that I really wanted to do that was meaningful for me, not that I've done everything, but that I wanted to do personally, was to make the final table or win the main event. And so I set out that intention. And then, 6 years later, I'm like so close. And so it's like the frustration level is quite high too, being that close to an accomplishment. So that is really driving for me, because it's like, it's really humbling. Like, I've been in poker 20 years and there's still more that I don't know than what I do know. There's still, even though there were moments of pride during those 8 days, there were moments that I wasn't at my best. There were moments where I made mistakes. There were moments where I could do things better. There were moments that I need to improve and I need to reflect on and get better. And so that's kind of driving me for the next year where, we're 300 days away from the main event, back in the gym, back in my meditation routine, back in my mindset routine. I'm back studying the spots. I'm back here. I'm at the Wynn right now. You can see the background. I'm like playing poker. So I'm like, I'm preparing, I'm getting better for the next year. And so that combination of emotions is really a yin and yang. So some days I'm just high on what happened, and other days I'm just like, damn it, Alec, you were so close and you screwed up this one spot and you could have got further. And so it's like, it's that dynamic.
So I want to, first of all, I would say definitely, because we're human, right? So I would say don't definitely be too hard on yourself, because I was talking to a friend of mine. What truly is the difference? It's so nuanced. Any sport, top 50 in the world, top 100 in the world.
Right.
Because that's what it is. This levels of poker, it's literally mindset, it's mentality. That's everybody I've spoken to, world champions. And I think, can you consistently, right, because you're there 8 days, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just comparing to other people that I've spoken to, can you consistently, that meditation, be kind of outside your body and not give anything to kind of what's going on. You have that muscle memory and you're doing that process, but yeah, you won, but you played amazing. And
Right.
it's probably just so nuanced, the difference between 1 and 50 and 25. Doesn't
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of luck, obviously, like that happens. Number one, for me to even get that far, there was an element of luck for me to get there. So it wasn't only my own merit; it was also my hands held up in the right spots, or I just got better hands than other people, or my bluff went through and it could have not went through. Like, so there was luck to get there. There's also skill to get there. And then there's luck to get from where I was to where I wanted to go. Like if I won the hand I was all in with and I doubled up, then maybe I would have got top 9. Or if the other people were all in and busted, I would have got top 9. Or maybe I would have won. Like who knows? And then there's also the part that you mentioned of just like the intensity of the 8 days. We play 13 hours a day. And so something people don't know is you start at noon, but and you finish around 1 a.m. But it's not like you go to sleep at 1 a.m. because you're at this peak state, right? Especially late in the day, you're running on adrenaline. The tournament gets progressively more important as the day goes on because you're getting deeper in the tournament. So your adrenaline's kind of kicking in. You're getting more and more like excited about what's happening. So you're at this incredibly peak state, almost like imagine you're leaving a concert, and you just went to your favorite like nightclub or DJ or rock concert. You're not going to just like go to sleep. Like it's just not how your rhythm of your body works. So you come home, you maybe sleep an hour and a half later. You get up and then, you have your table draw. So you have to study all the players at your table and kind of look at who's going. We have to be there early for interviews. You have to get there, you have to work out, meditate. So like maybe not sleeping that often, sleeping that much. And so the compounding of that is challenging. And then the mental game of like staying focused for each hand throughout those 8 days is where I think the pregame prep comes in. So it's about staying in flow, but staying in flow is not necessarily that hard. If you have to work for an hour or two, you kind of do your little dedicated time of work. It's one thing, but doing it 13 hours a day where one hand could cost you the whole tournament was a lot of the preparation and the challenge that I think was interesting about the main event. And I had most of that focus dialed into my A game for all of the 7 days. But there was one day that I was a little bit off my game. And it wasn't like I was deteriorating and played terrible. I just wasn't at that peak level that I was the other 7 days. And I played a few hands during that day in a way that I wouldn't have had I been at that level. And so it wasn't only like a knowledge thing where I didn't know what the right play was. It was that I kind of fell out of that rhythm for a minute. And so that's kind of the interesting part of poker is it's like it's challenging on a lot of different fronts. There's the mental game, there's the psychology, and there's the tactical game. So all these things are, like I said, very humbling, and a lot of things I can do to improve to be a little better next year.
And I know you kept saying, I'm there to win. I love that mentality. Kind of like it seems like you were just visualizing that win, and you kept having that mantra. Is that kind of like part of your process? Like it just,
yeah, and I hope it didn't come across the wrong way on camera because like. People only see what's happening there, but like it was kind of just like that, runner that's running a race and they're like getting close to the finish line and they're yelling at themselves to keep going. And it was kind of like that internal psychological thing to keep me at that state of like, I need to stay focused, especially when you lose a hand or you make a mistake or you're down or the pressure is on and you kind of have to keep those blinders on of, at least for me, of like where I'm wanting to go. And so, yes, like I even started this kind of process after I played a big tournament in Monaco in May. And then I went back to Italy for the whole summer and got ready for the main event. And every day, like part of my practice was just imagining, like I said, visualizing during my meditation, whatever, just like thinking about the challenges I would face during this 8 to 10 day struggle. And like, how would I play if I was at the final table? Like, so I would imagine myself being in these high pressure moments and then seeing all the challenges I would face and preparing for them mentally so that when I was there, it was as if I had already prepared for this. I had already seen this reality transpire and I was calm. And so it allowed me to play from this place of confidence and calm because I was like, oh, of course this is happening. I already imagined this happening. And it wasn't in an arrogant way. It was just in like a, luck is where preparation meets opportunity type of way. And so because I had prepared for all of these eventual, not everyone, but a lot of these eventual struggles I would face during this time, I had like resources and like mantras and sort of an approach to get me back to that focus point. So even when I would lose a hand, I would just kind of think about it like this is a part of my journey, and the boat doesn't go straight from where you are to where you want to go. It has twists and turns, and there's currents that take you away from your path, but it's all part of my destination to get to the final table. And so that kind of level of focus and that visualization sort of helped calm me to play in my best centered state. And I think ultimately, at least for me, like I of course the prize pool and the money and the prestige is all part of it. But for me, it was really about trying to win. And that's just like a one, the money you make during the main is cool, but it's like you could only achieve the result of making the final table or winning the main through the main event. And so that was a big driver for me, because it was about the journey. It was about the process. It was about trying to be my best, not trying to make a certain amount during the main. So that was always my driver. And that's why I kept my eyes focused on that prize of, hey, I really want to win this thing.
I love that. And from different people, all walks of life, championship level, they mention about, and you've mentioned it a few times about meditation. I'm a huge believer in meditation. It helps, the more it helps you self-actualize, realize who you are, where you are.
Yeah.
And then kind of see that movie. How much does, for you, meditation, how much of your core mentality, how much does that play in for you?
I've been meditating every day for 8 years now, and my process has gotten more advanced over time, obviously as like anything that you do for a long time. And so that, in combination with working with a mental coach and visualizing and like self-hypnosis and all these sorts of mental tactics to kind of keep me at a peak state, have been a huge part of it. I think in poker, it's one of those weird phenomenon where it's kind of easier to know what the right play is if you're watching someone on TV and you can see the cards and it's kind of obvious to you what the right decision is. You're like, oh, well, of course he should fold here. He should bluff here. He should go all in, or he should do this, or she, whatever. And so that fact was really puzzling to me. It's like, how come the knowledge part of it seems relatively trivial if you could watch the game? And it's because you're not in the first person. You're not emotional. There's no ego. You're not connected to the outcome. And you're not in the physical moment. You're not in the arena. There's no pressure. There's no television. There's nobody watching you. There's nobody's judging your play. There's nothing at stake. There's not $1 million decision on the line. So it's easier to make the decisions absent of all the pressure. And so I realized, wow, a lot of it is not my knowledge. Of course, I need to improve my knowledge. I need to improve my skills, my tactics, my game theory, and all these things. But I also need to improve my ability to execute. Because if my ability to execute is very high when I'm watching someone else play, then why isn't it that high when I'm actually playing? Well, it's because of the mental game. So how do you work on the mental game? Well, you do the things we talked about. So that's why I've worked with a mental coach, meditated every day. A lot of my meditation is just like the process of meditation, where you reconnect to your breath and focus on staying present, because that's also what you need to do in poker. Like if you lose a big hand, you lose half your stack. You don't need your mind to be racing about all the BS of the past. You need to be present about what's happening right now. And that's that process of reconnecting to your breath. Staying in flow for 13 hours a day is the process that you train during meditation, where you stay in flow 20 minutes twice a day, 30 minutes twice a day. If you can train that muscle every single day, it's easier to do in the arena. But the second part of it is like, the part of meditation is also the visualization part of like how I want to think, how I want to perform, how I want to be, how I want to act at the table. What are my strengths and weaknesses? What are the things I need to improve at? What are the things I'm struggling with? So I think it's a huge part of my game. I do it. I would say I meditate, I'd say every day, certainly before poker sessions. And it's kind of more specific when I'm doing something in poker as opposed to just a daily meditation. So I kind of have different processes that I've, created over the years. But for me, it's been huge. And I think poker, is really a mental performance sport, right? And so I think it's important even in a physical sport. And one thing I tell clients is like, if you watch other great athletes, they all have like a meditation process. Mm-hmm. They might not call it that. They might not, it might not seem like that. But if you watch, an athlete shoot a free throw, they're not just going up to the line, grabbing the ball and shooting. They're going into this flow state where they're kind of like shaking out their shoulders. They're dribbling the ball. They breathe out and then they shoot, right? So what are they doing? They're going into this mental flow state. And so they probably practice that away from the table, where they visualize themselves shooting that shot. And so if it's true for other athletes in a physical sport, imagine in a mental sport like poker, how much more important it is. And so for me, I think it's crucial. It's fundamental.
So I'm going to tell you, because the nature of this world is we want to believe that we can control certain things.
Yeah.
And actually, the only thing we can control is our own reaction. And if we know that and we accept that, we surrender that that's the truth, then I think it's like going to the gym. Meditation, the same way you go to the gym, you have to. Your brain can either be your best friend, your mind talking to you because it talks to you 24/7. It's the most important thing. Meditation allows you to see what is, and then you can, again, worst enemy or best friend cheering you on, right? You're naturally programmed, no, that's not possible, that can't be. So you have to see all that, and then you have to get rid of all that, because whether you're an athlete or not, or just going through this world, because of all those unknowns, you have to make decisions, and you have to be clear-minded, and the more better decisions you make with it, whether it could be poker or anything else you're doing, that's why and I'm seeing that more and more, again, as I'm journeying through my meditation journey. Let me ask you this. What sticks out in your mind as the hand that you cannot believe that you actually won, or the one hand that really surprised you, or that was like the best hand of the tournament?
Well, I guess this is kind of perhaps normal, or still a bit of self-torture. It's like I mostly think about the hands I misplayed that I could have done differently that would have allowed me to have a better result. Those are definitely the ones that stick out more in your mind. And I think it's common for poker players to remember the hands they lose rather than the ones they win, because the pain of losing is greater than the joy of winning. And so that's kind of also that self-perpetuating thing to try and get better. So I mostly think about those hands, frankly, the mistakes I made rather than the joys. But I'm glad you asked the question, because it's also good to reflect. I mean, there's a couple of significant hands that were like very big where, I was all in. I had a 3-way all in on day 5 where 3 people were all in, and I had the best hand, and I had them both in a very bad spot, and my hand held up. So I didn't triple up because I wasn't all in, but they were both all in. So I busted 2 people. And that was like a big turning point for me, where I went from like an average stack to kind of a big stack. And then also just like the psychology of busting 2 people, and, they caught it on camera. And I it was just like it was kind of like a moment where I realized, like, hey, I'm making a run at this thing, and that was like it was a chip boost, but it was also like a psychological boost that, wow, like fortune is on my side, and the way I played the hand and the way things went out, it's all kind of like happening for me. And so that was really exciting. That doesn't happen often in tournaments where 3 people are all in and your hand holds up. That's very rare. But then I think the other hands that really stand out are kind of like the little spots. And I think a lot of poker seems to be like, oh, you watch, let's say, the World Series is coming out on TV in a month, and it'll be a 12-hour day edited into a 30-minute episode. And so it's kind of like the highlight reel, right? If you watch, it's tantamount to watching a basketball game. And, the game is 60 minutes and you see 1 minute on ESPN and you say, oh, wow, that was the cool 3-point shot. That was the slam dunk. That was the buzzer beater. And that's why the team won the game. Whereas in reality, in poker, and I think also in basketball, in other sports, the reason that you win the game is not because of these extreme moments that are flashy, like the 3-way all in, but they're actually the little things. So in basketball, it would be how many rebounds, how many free throws did you make? Did you box out? Did you pass the ball correctly? How many assists did you have? It's kind of the boring, non-sexy stuff. And that's where the game of inches is really made. And that's where you could kind of see the difference between, the plays you're making and perhaps the plays the other people are making. So there are definitely a few spots where perhaps the hand wasn't ESPN worthy, but there were these little spots where I kind of just zigged and zagged around, and I accumulated chips, and I won a pot I shouldn't have won that led to this and that. And so it was all the little hands that I'm really the most proud of, where it was like those little edges where you just do something a little bit better in a spot where it's non-conventional and nobody really notices, that propels you through those 7 days. And I think that's kind of the game of life too. It's not like you have to do these grand things. You just have to compound the little things you do better every single day and just keep showing up and doing those. And I think the 8 days really stood out to me. Yeah, there were a few big hands where I played a big hand. I made a great bluff on day 2 in a big spot, I remember, and it went through. Sure, but that happens once a day. What happens 50 times a day are all the little decisions where, you bet just a little bit bigger to get them to fold in a certain spot. And it's maybe a 20% difference in your bet size that changes the dynamic of the hand, that changes the result. And so that's what's interesting about poker, is it's really a game of like very subtle inches where the level of mastery just requires that little optimization, and that's what keeps the game really fun.
And I love that you pointed that out about, in life it's exactly that way. People don't realize, okay, we have a bad habit, and it could be a year, 2 years, 5 years, and all of a sudden that's a really bad thing that's going on in your life, or changing one little thing, showing up to that thing each day, and because of time happens, the compounding effect of time, all of a sudden you have this unbelievable result. You look back, you're like, wow. Because you don't see it. If you're first person, you're like, wow. But then a year later, you're looking back at pictures, you're like, wow, I was there. But it's literally how life goes. It's literally
there's the 1% better rule. Like if you get 1% better every day, you're 37% better at the end of the year. Another interesting fact is like in air navigation, they have the 1 in 60 rule. So if you are you fly 60 miles and you are off course by 1 degree, it means you made a 1 degree error in navigation. So it's like the small difference in direction at an early inflection point down the line could be the difference between you ending up in one country or another. If you look at how the map the map plays out. And so I think it's like that too. You eat 50 calories deprivation a day, you're going to lose weight. You eat 50 calories too much a day, you're going to get at the end of the year, you're 10 pounds up, 10 pounds down. So it's like, it's really like that in life. And so I just try and think about that between now and the main, now and next year, or what I was doing in the summer. It's just like, how am I a little bit better today than I was yesterday? Or like, what's one thing I'm doing to get further along in my life goals or my poker goals than I was yesterday? I don't try and make these like big changes every day. I just try and just do one thing, just do one thing a little bit better, improve one habit.
And I like that you pointed out, it's like we tend to focus on the negative things and then how we could do better. That's like kind of where our energy goes. But my grandfather gave me a trick. He's like, anytime you accomplish something or something happens in your life, do a little something for yourself. Do something physical in this world. It's okay to kind of reward yourself, like establish that, like, wow, okay, I did that. I'm doing this for myself. So you implant that kind of positive dendrites, or in your
it's like that positive conditioning where you're like, hey, I accomplished this, so therefore I created this memory or this moment or this experience thanks to what the hard work I did. And I think that reinforces the positive momentum to keep doing that. I think that's a great idea.
And so obviously we're talking about mindset. What about like the physical? People don't realize that. What is like training, 8 days or possibly 10 days, 13 hours a day. What's the like the physical? Like, what is the gym, the yoga, or workout? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. You wouldn't think of poker as like a physical sport, and it's not that demanding physically because you are sitting in a chair. Like, I'm not going to pretend you're like sprinting at a high level, like, competing with Usain Bolt. But there's a couple things here. So one is, if you have a strong body, it means you have a strong mind. So I think training your body hard and being in very good shape is a good proxy for the discipline it takes to do that. And so if every day you can push yourself to be a little bit better, physically, it means that you're very strong mentally. And so having that mental fortitude to be able to overcome difficult physical challenges is a very good muscle to build mentally, so that you can apply that muscle to adversity that you face at the poker table. So if you can overcome the adversity of, let's say you want to deadlift a lot of weight or do 10 pull-ups or whatever it is you want to do, if you could achieve that, because it's mainly a mental thing to do 10 pull-ups, you have to like mentally commit to doing pull-ups every single day. It's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. The physical act of doing pull-ups lasts 30 seconds. It's not that physical. It's mostly mental. So if you could overcome that mentally on a daily basis, it puts you in a very strong position mentally to be able to compete at a high level in poker. So having, being in very good shape is something that you cannot buy. You have to earn, and you have to earn through mental fortitude. So I think that's very important. The second component of it is that it is very demanding. You're playing, 100 hours of poker in 8 days or something like that. That's a lot of poker. If you think about, you work 40 hours a week, you may be playing 80 hours a week or 100 hours a week or something like that in those 8 days. And it's also a function of, you have to be very mentally alert during all of those hours. So if you are sluggish or eating the wrong foods or out of shape, that is going to affect your mental performance as well. So I think, the diet is very important. Eating healthy is very important. I think working out before sessions is very important. I did a lot of So I worked out a lot over the summer to kind of do that mental, physical, mind body prep. I would lift 4 or 5 days a week, do cardio. I tried to get really strong, not because there was like some physical thing I was trying to lift, but because, like I said, if I could add more weight to my lift every week, it was like a sign that I was pushing myself to get a little bit better. And so it was mostly, it wasn't about the superficial idea of trying to, deadlift 250. It was just about the idea of trying to start at 145 a year earlier and work my way up to get to that point where I was like winning mentally every day I was in the gym. And then I think the main stamina thing I would do was just try and do like sprints. And I like doing sprints because you have to exert a lot of physical effort, and you also train, your body to have endurance, and you elevate your heart rate in a high intensity way that mimics kind of what you're doing at the table. So I would, sprint on the treadmill for a minute. While I would do that, I would kind of visualize like hands of poker that I wanted to play and mistakes I would make, because I felt like if I could like imagine how I would play a hand while I was under an extreme amount of physical exertion and pressure, and I had to use like a lot of mental willpower to like force myself to run as fast as I could, then it would be easier to do that activity while I was like sitting at the table and calm and my heart rate was low. And then I would walk for a minute, and the walking kind of represents the hand is over, other people are playing, and you're kind of taking a break. And so I would sprint and walk, sprint and walk, sprint and walk. And I would do this every day before my sessions to kind of get myself like mentally ready and psyched up to be like, hey, you're going to battle, and you have to kind of prepare for these high elevation heart rate moments where you're sprinting and walking for 13 hours. So I would kind of use that as a way to get warmed up for my sessions mentally and physically. And so, yeah, the stamina component's important. The mind body thing's important. It's a fun challenge.
And I know obviously outside of the table, right? So it's some crypto investments, and I just wanted to get your take. And so obviously some real estate investments.
Yeah.
Congratulations. $700,000 is not a little bit of money, right? It's a big win. What do you think about crypto and real estate, for that matter, at this point, as far as opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting macro environment. So it's hard. I mean, real estate is so niche where, there's certain industries and niches that I think are going to do well. There's certain cities that are probably going to be growing over the next decade. And then there's certain industries that, like commercial and office space in major cities, that might be struggling a little bit more. So it's hard to say on a macro level. Obviously, interest rates affect things as well. And so that's an interesting dynamic. And I think our focus has mainly been the mobile home park space, and looking at faster growing cities in the Midwest where over time there's going to be a lot of people moving there, and we can rehab the places and add value to the point where we're sure the numbers are going to work. And I think in the crypto space, it's interesting because I think you want to do the opposite of what the consensus is. And so right now, everyone loved crypto in 2021, and that was obviously the worst time to buy. Like it was the best time if you caught it early, but most people bought the top, and then they were in love with crypto, and now we've kind of reached a bottom, at least I think, in January, 16K or something like that. And now crypto's out of favor. But like historically, these bear markets go in cycles, and they last, typically 4 years with the halving of Bitcoin. And so I think now's the time in crypto that I'm more bullish, when everyone else is bearish, when the price is lower, when your risk reward is greater, or your reward to risk is greater, because you're buying at lower prices, but the opportunity is still there. And so I'm actually more bullish crypto now than before, because we've lived through a bear market, and it's been a year or so, and usually these things go in cycles. And I think 2024, 2025, we're going to be in a good place. But long term, I'm very, very bullish on crypto. So that's a. And
I would say that same sentiment.
I have.
By the way, I would say the same sentiment with real estate, and is micro markets. But I am getting those calls, and I do know banks are not lending the way they used to. I know interest rates are what they are. But like I tell everybody, now just make really low offers. Just go around, not, let's just say 70 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar for what it was 18 months ago. That's, and you just, who cares? Worst they could say is no.
And you wait.
And you wait. That's right. So So I'm
I feel like
seeing
there's
that.
a lot of consensus in
Yeah.
real estate that things are going to get worse before they get better.
Mm-hmm.
But then a lot of people are waiting. So it's hard to know whether the consensus is already priced in. And I think that's a funny thing about crypto too, where once the whole market agrees on a narrative, that narrative is usually priced in and it goes the other way. And that's what I've kind of noticed when like the market converges on an idea and it's like that idea is already priced in. So everyone thinks we're going up. It's like all the people are already positioned on one side. And then for the most likely option is that you already have all the buyers. So the marginal person is the seller. And then it goes the opposite way. And so it's funny. I've really noticed that as a trend in crypto that I'm probably more familiar with.
And I do see that. I do see that in the public markets as well, because it's much faster. But the beautiful thing about real estate is that because it's a turtle, it's slower to go down.
Takes forever.
Also slower to go back up. And so if you can, because I'm seeing that fear, right? That fear, because I'm in that space. I'm seeing that, and people, they're jumping ship. People you would think, it looks a certain way, but peel back the layers and you'll see different things. But one thing also, what I see is your coaching business. I know Conscious Poker, and you do coaching. Is it coaching for poker or is it coaching for holistic life, for mindset?
No, I mean, people come to me wanting to improve at poker. But I think what's interesting about it is there's two ways to improve at poker. You can be better at playing the game, which is the strategy, the tactics, the game theory, the ranges, the equities, the math, whatever. But you could also be a better poker player, which is the things that we've kind of talked about during a lot of this interview. We didn't talk much about strategy. We talked about, the mindset, the mental game. We didn't talk about this, but tilt control and emotional control is a huge component of your ability to play better. Because like we talked about before, it's not only knowledge, it's ability to implement that knowledge. But what if like you said, it's a great point. You're only in control of how you react. Well, what if the way you're reacting to losing is costing you more money because you're reactive, or you have an ego, or you get frustrated, or you take it personal, and then you start playing poorly because you're losing? Well, that's not necessarily something that is a tactical thing or a strategic thing. It's like a mental thing. So there's two ways to improve at poker. And with my clients, definitely it's a holistic approach. And with my coaching and our Conscious Poker and what we do and the content we make, it's very much about both sides of improving. Some people only want the strategy. Other people want both. Other people want to focus more on the mental side because they have a tilt control problem. And so I think the coaching is very dynamic and it's very rewarding because ultimately you're helping people make better decisions. They're making better decisions through the game of poker. But if you can teach that framework of how to look at a situation, separate your emotion from that situation, separate what your desires are, because your desire is to win the pot. So, okay, if you want to win, you go all in, but that's not always what the best decision is. You separate your desire, your emotion, your ego from the outcome. You separate the quality of your decision from the outcome, and you're able to objectively and not analyze whether or not you made a good decision, not based on the outcome, but based on the merit of the play. You're able to properly, manage your capital to determine your risk in any given hand, whether it's your individual stack or how much you're buying into a game or how much you're risking in a tournament. And then you're able to, stay in flow and play well. And you're able to analyze a situation with a risk reward perspective in the right way and use the math and the analysis, make good decisions with imperfect information. You could do all those things in a hand of poker. Well, shit. You're going to apply those skills to everything you do in life, right? You're analyzing a deal. You don't know all the variables. You don't know exactly everything. You can't underwrite it perfectly. You have to kind of make an educated guess or a hypothetical bet based on imperfect information. That's what you're doing every hand of poker. So if you could train that muscle and all those things we talked about, 10,000 times a month, you play 10,000 hands a month, you're going to get better at decision making. And so I feel like a lot of the impact of the coaching extends beyond what we do in the poker context with my clients. And they tell me, hey, well, this actually helped me in my job as a CEO because with this and that, or as an investor or with this. And so it's really rewarding to be able to have that impact.
Yeah. And I know I asked you last time on the show, but maybe it shifted. Right now, what is something that you're deeply grateful for?
I guess the thing I'm the most grateful for recently is just the incredible support I had from the people around me. And I've always had this, something I've always noticed and been grateful for, but it really came to light during the main event. So everyone from my wife, who
is really my partner in everything we do at the Conscious Poker side, on the business side, but really just completely running the ship, taking over everything for me so that I could be focused in the arena, and just emotional support, so many things that we did together during the main event. My parents, who were there with me, cheering me on every step of the way, helping in every aspect that they could. My fans, people DMing me on Instagram, like just encouraging me to go forward and saying that, my journey was inspiring them, which kind of kept me focused and kept me going. My mental coach, who I worked with during the main as well, just so much credit to her for the work we've done together over the years. There's just been so many people that have really stepped up, and I think, even though I'm the one competing in the arena, I'm the protagonist, it's really a team sport. It's kind of like being on a chessboard where you need all of the pieces to work in synergy in order to win the chess game. And so I'm just one of those pieces, and really that was something that was extremely inspiring and came to light, and something I've been very grateful for lately.
I've never seen a scenario otherwise but effective team play. Everybody has their role. You happen to be the one flying the airplane. But,
yeah, exactly.
But the plane ain't going to fly. You don't have the engineer. You don't have the people. You don't have, right? There's a lot of things that go in, and it's strengths and weaknesses. And always putting that in perspective. That's the only way consistent, long-term, compounding growth happens with people, team. So
yeah, that's something. I mean, a lot of things to be grateful for. Health is good. I mean, like, just a lot of simple things that aren't actually simple when they become a problem, because you realize, what real problems are. So all those other things in life are good. But that was a really cool thing that, you asked kind of in the beginning what I've been reflecting on in the last couple of weeks and the month. That's been a big one, where it's just been a lot of everything kind of came together at once, and you just kind of saw the support around me, and that was really cool.
And this is great catching up again. Wish you the best of luck. I'm sure be rooting for you next year.
Let's do this again next year with a better result.
Exactly. No, but that's tremendous. But if people want to maybe get some coaching or follow you, how can they do that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on social media everywhere at Alec Torelli. Just be careful that you're actually following me. AlecTorelli, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. And then AlecTorelli.com is more about me and what I do. And Conscious Poker, like, speaking engagements and stuff like that. If I speak to business groups I teach them poker, but I also talk about 5 principles from poker that apply to business or investing or decision making. That's very fun and rewarding. And then ConsciousPoker.com is the poker training site. So specifically, if you want to get better at the game of poker, the things we talked about today, that's where I do my poker training and coaching. So any of those places, there's email opt-ins on both of those sites. You can just respond to that. It goes directly to me. I read all my email, and I'm very active on social media. So DM me, say hi. Happy to interact with all of you guys.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Alec. It's been a lot of fun. Good luck with everything. Moshe. All the best. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow us on YouTube and Facebook at Popack, and on Instagram at Common Denominator. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.